When Freyja was released almost 3 years ago, she was dead on arrival. She wanted to be an Omni tank and the worst movement type for tanking. She was a mythic, so she couldn't receive mythic buffs, and while her art was top tier, she definitely was not. Now the question is, with her new remix, is she dead on arrival again? Well, let's discuss Freyja's kit, her remix, her ability and problems, and see if there's some kind of refine that could possibly make Freyja good. Okay, let's start off with Freyja's preference weapon, Nightmare Horn. And what this essentially does is give speed +3, you get built-in distant counter, you get speed-based damage reduction, and then you get a cavalry beast transformation. So while this definitely was a good weapon at the time when it was released, it was just not on the right unit type. But nowadays this weapon is super outdated. So she's definitely going to need a nice upgrade here so she can be usable. Next, let's go over to Freyja's remix, Binding Necklace Plus. So now we have Binding Necklace Plus, and what this does is you get to remove the condition for transformation, you get Phantom Speed 2, which is like +7 when it comes to speed checks, you get +3 to all stats during combat, and you can inflict -3 to all stats on the foe, you get Anti-Guard, and you get like the bonus stealer effect. Essentially, if they have a visible bonus, they get a penalty based off that number, and then Freyja gets a bonus based off that number. Now, I've seen some people say this is good or like kind of overplay it, but I really want to break down what this essentially does and why it's not very good at all. So if we're talking about the changes from Binding Necklace base version to the upgrade, she is getting the ability to remove her condition to transform, right? So what is that effectively, right? You get a clash effect where you can inflict attack and defense -X on the foe up to 6, so it's giving Freyja some stats, which is nice. And then also if X equals 5 or more, she gets 30% damage reduction against the foe's first attack. And this is probably the best part of that transformation effect, and maybe the whole remix itself, is that it's giving Freyja more ways to stack damage reduction, which she desperately needs. The problem being is that you do need the foe to move at least 2 spaces, which isn't always the case when you are just tanking in the same spot, and it's only against the first attack, which isn't the worst if Freyja gets some key effects she really needs. Next, we have a tiny upgrade to the Binding Necklace effect, where she gets +1 more stat and gets to inflict -1 more stat on the foe. So overall, she's getting +2 to all stats. I mean, that's something. It's not bad, right? It's 8 stats effectively, but it's not nearly what she needs. She needs way more stats than that, to be honest. So this is okay, but really when you think about it, +2 to all stats is not what you're looking for in a remix. After that, we have Phantom Speed 2. And Phantom Speed 2 is a very good effect to have, but it kind of tells you what kind of direction they're taking Freyja, right? We've seen this effect on like Close Call 4, right? Or like Spurn 4, or any of the new speed-based damage reduction effects. And it does help. It makes it easier to win those speed checks, which Freyja wants to do, but it's not like a game-changing effect, right? This isn't the effect you dream of having on your remix. This is just a nice bonus effect you get with those skills. And so while it's good to see that it's here, it's not enough to really help her out that much. The other effect she really got was Anti-Guard, and this does definitely help Freyja out a lot because it can help her like be more consistent with her specials, right? Which she definitely needs. She needs to be able to like proc specials consistently. The problem is that she doesn't have slaying in her weapon. She has speed +3. And so without slaying, Anti-Guard is good, but not amazing. And so we really need to see some kind of slaying so that she can have more consistent damage through specials or more consistent healing through specials. And then finally, we have the bonus stealer effect, the main effect of Binding Necklace from the beginning. And this effect has just never been consistent. That's the truth of it. It can be very, very good, right? If the foe is fully stacked out on buffs and they're using bonus doubler, right? This is great because you can just steal their bonuses and you get to have a nice big bonus, and they don't, right? The thing is, it's just not consistent when you're playing on Aetheryde's offense. Because you're up against Aetheryde's defense maps, a lot of defenses just don't run buffs at all. And the reason for that is because of panic, right? If they have panic, it just completely shuts down those buffs and makes their team weaker. Or the other option, which is much more prevalent nowadays in the higher ranks, and that is running Legendary Robin. And Legendary Robin doesn't need buffs, right? You just effectively get all the stats you need through that Grand Strategy Unity effect. So overall, I think this remix just wasn't that great for Freyja. It didn't give her the effects she absolutely needed if she wanted to play that Omni Tank role, which she seems to be leaning towards. Okay, let's move on to the tiers and talk about the effects that Freyja desperately needs so she can be revived. So Freyja's in a kind of weird situation where honestly the best refine she could probably get is one that focused on Gale Force and allowed her to be a really good Gale Forcer. The problem is that Nerthus exists, and Nerthus is already like a goat Gale Forcer who's in Light Season, so it's kind of difficult to compete there. So it's kind of going to be interesting to see what effects she really can get to help her either in that Omni Tank role or in the Gale Force role. Let's talk about one of the best effects she could get, and one that I expect to see absolutely, and that is upgraded speed-based damage reduction. Currently, she has up to 40% speed-based damage reduction in her weapon, That is just not the standard anymore, so I definitely expect this to be upgraded to 50%. They could put more Phantom Speed here as well, like Close Call 4 has, so that she could stack it up, kind of like how New Year's Left Eye can, which could help her like make sure that she gets those damage reduction checks. But even so, this is like something she needs to have, and if she doesn't have this, her chances of being an Omni Tank drop even more in my opinion. So I do expect to see this. The biggest reason Freyja completely utterly sucks in my opinion is that she can't use mythic buffs. That is just such a giant stat disadvantage, right? You're losing anywhere from 10 to 20 HP, anywhere from like 10 to 15 resistance, speed, attack. You're just missing a billion stats. And so bonus stats is very high on Freyja's tier list for effects, because that is the biggest thing holding her back as a cavalry unit and as a mythic. She needs a ridiculous amount of stats. Like I'm talking about absurd, like inflict -10 to all stats on the foes, and then maybe Freyja can actually work. Another good Omni Tank effect that Freyja could have is Scowl. This is in limited dragons, but the thing is with Freyja is that currently all of her damage reduction is pierceable, meaning all it takes is like one good Deadeye from like Duo Crom and Freyja's dead. So Scowl could definitely help her out. Another one could be like No Counter Disrupt. Once again, healers are everywhere, so having No Counter Disrupt could help Freyja out as well. But I do think that it is kind of budget heavy when it comes to her weapon, so I don't really expect that as well. Another lower effect could be Guard. Typically, Freyja's not going to want to get hit twice, so Guard isn't the biggest deal, but it definitely does help out in certain situations, especially when it comes to like brave weapons. One of the other bigger problems Freyja is going to have as a GOAT mythic is that she doesn't have a way to really kill things, right? She's essentially just relying on her natural damage through doubling to kill things. And what that means is that she is going to struggle. There is so much damage reduction in the current meta that she just needs ways to kill things. And so the things that I think we definitely want to see on Freyja is speed-based true damage. This could help her out a ton. We've seen this on a lot of the GOATs that just came out, right? Up to 15%. I think Freyja needs like 20% speed-based true damage. 50% could be usable. 20% would be preferable though. That could help her out a ton and allow her to secure some kills. Some other options of course are DR Halving and DR Piercing. Both of these effects can help Freyja out a ton. Personally, I prefer DR Halving because Piercing does require her to have like Slaying so she can reliably hit specials. But with the anti-guard effect, it is possible she gets Slaying and then DR Piercing does become a lot better. Another effect that Freyja is desperately going to need as an Omni Tank is healing. Now percent healing is the best version of that obviously, but some kind of healing is necessary for Freyja, and the reason for that is very simple. She's going to have a very small HP pool compared to other Omni Tanks in Ether Raids. And so if she wants to be an Omni Tank, she's going to get hit really hard, and she needs a way to heal up pretty much all that HP so she doesn't die in the next encounter. So I think percent healing could help her out a ton, or some kind of like just advanced healing that will help her out, right? One of the biggest effects she needs if she wants to be an Omni Tank is no follow-up. She needs full no follow-up to really work. The thing is, Freyja is going to be very squishy. No matter how much damage reduction she gets, she's going to be weak to something, and so she really can't afford to get hit twice. And because she's a cavalry, full no follow-up just isn't that available. And so if she doesn't get full no follow-up in her weapon, she's going to struggle a lot. Essentially what you're going to have to do is like bring a unit like Katie and Lind or like Fall in Love to ensure Freyja does have full no follow-up. Because if she doesn't, she's just pretty much dead on arrival when it comes to Omni Tanking. So this is an effect she has to have. Like there's no other option. If she's going to be an Omni Tank, this is necessary. The other effect I would love to see, of course, is that flat damage reduction and true damage based off speed this time. I think this is one of the coolest effects she could get and the best effect she could get as an Omni Tank, because it is a way to give her non-pierceable DR and to allow her to secure more kills. Not really surprising, it's very good on everyone, and it's a very powerful effect. That's why it's been so limited to such a few characters. Now, hear me out, this is probably one of the weirdest effects you've heard, but what if Freyja could get an effect that allowed her to receive Mythic Blessings? That's right, we're gonna put this one into S+ tier. Freyja's biggest problem as an Omni Tank is not getting Mythic Blessings. It just completely screws her over and just makes her pretty much unusable. So being able to get this effect would be very, very unusual. We've never seen anything like this before, but I'm just saying, like, hey, IS, if you want to make her unique, give her this, right? This could help her out a ton. It could give her HP. It could give her, like, all the stats she needs. So this could be a very good effect if she wants to go that Omni Tank route. Now, with that said, let's talk about the other route Freyja could take, and in my opinion, the much better route, and that is a Gale Force unit. As a Gale Force unit, Freyja already has anti-guard, which is very important, and she is a cav, which means she has extra movement, so she can kind of get in there. So I think this is the better route for her to take, but once again, she will be stepping on Nerthus's toes a little bit. Now, the biggest effect I want to talk about for a Gale Force is, of course, Slaying. We need a way to get that cooldown lowered, having it at 5 is just not going to work typically. Even if you do bring your unit like Asker to get it down to 4, you really just want Slaying. It just makes it much more consistent, much more easy. So having Slaying is a very, very big one. The other one, of course, the effect that she needs is Breath Effect, or Special Acceleration, right? She really wants Special Acceleration from both hits, so that she can go in, hit, get hit, have Gale Force charge, and then she can hit twice and make sure, even through guard, that she can get that Gale Force off. So I think that Breath Effect is very, very big for Freyja if she wants to go that Gale Force route, and hopefully we do see that. Now, the problem you might have noticed is that this sounds very similar to Nerthus and Ader, and you're right, these are essentially the same weapons, and so that's why I think they won't go that route. I think they will go the Omni Tank route, which I'm really scared of. Some other good effects she can get, we're going to put in A tier, is like Times Pulse, right? This is kind of like Slaying. It's not obviously not as good, but when it comes to Gale Force, it's almost as good because you typically only need to proc your special once per turn. Wings of Mercy could be also a very, very good effect for Freyja to get. Not that I really expect that though. And the reason why is because it would allow Freyja to be a Gale Force follow-up instead of an initiator. And the problem with Freyja as a Gale Force initiator is that she actually has quite a bit of damage reduction when it comes to that role. Not as an Omni Tank, but as a Gale Forcer, she's going to have damage reduction from her weapon. She's also going to have damage reduction from the Cavalry Beast transformation. And so what that means is that it might be difficult for her to get into the 50% HP range for Wings of Mercy consistently. So having Wings of Mercy in her weapon could allow her to fulfill that other role and allow somebody else to initiate. So it could be very good. Another effect that would be very nice for her to have is Feud. Feud has actually just gone up in so much value recently because there's so many powerful supports out there nowadays. And when you get to the highest tiers of Ether Raids in Light Season, one unit you're going to run into pretty consistently is Fallen Maria. So having Feud would just allow Freyja to be a Gale Force initiator who could ignore Maria, which would give her a ton of value. So I think Feud is a nice effect there. It could also help her in summoner duels if you want to use her there. And then two other effects we've seen quite commonly on melee cavalry is Kanto, which I think is very good if she's going the Gale Force route. If she's going the Omni Tank route, I don't think Kanto is as necessary just because she really needs every bit of power going towards her ability to tank and kill things and survive, right? But when it comes to Gale Force, Kanto is actually very nice because it allows her to be more mobile, to open up pockets for other things with Wings of Mercy in. So I think Kanto could be very nice. The thing is, she can always switch out her C skill for something like Alarm Attack Speed and get Kanto 1, which is all she really needs. So it's not the biggest effect she wants, but it could be nice. And then the other effect we could see for sure is +1 movement. And while this wouldn't be like insane, it could allow her to like have a new home and summoner duels. It could also allow her to just engage from a much farther range, which is always nice as well. And it would make Kanto better if she has like Kanto remaining +1 or something like that, right? It could allow her to run away really far, maybe even play like a hit and run kind of strategy. Now the final effect I want to talk about is probably the worst thing they could do, and that is give Freyja support effects. Freyja essentially, in my opinion, has two routes she can go, Omni Tank or Gale Force. They could try to make her into a support unit, but if they were going to do that, they should have remixed Binding Necklace into a support effect instead, which they definitely did not do. So I think they're trying to like give her half support and like half combat could be very, very poor unless the support is ridiculous, right? Like if we get an NCD Aura or if we get like Anti-Unity or something like that, then of course her value is going to skyrocket. But because she is an older unit, I kind of doubt they will do that. They'll probably try to sell that on a new hero. Okay, and with that, that is all the effects I think Freyja could use as a mythic hero. The question is which route they take her and which effects she gets, because she's going to need quite a few for either route she's going. So hopefully they can find out some way to make Freyja usable, because currently she is easily the worst light mythic in the game, arguably the worst mythic in the game right now. And so her having to have a redemption is going to be very big, kind of like Legendary Self. They kind of put the worst Legendary and the worst mythic into the same batch. So let's see if they can both get redeemed. Anyways, I'd love to hear from you now. What do you think of these effects? Which route would you like to see Freyja take? And which effects do you think she needs to follow those two routes? I'd love to hear from you, so make sure to drop a comment down below. And as always, I'd like to thank my members for their constant support. If you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe. This has been Oblivion. I'll catch you all later.